now let's talk about our speaker today, which is the amazing Professor Florian Bloch, who is from the University of York, but also Doc 10 Studios. So he's a professor of digital creativity with us at York. And he specializes in leveraging AI and emerging creative technologies for real-time immersive storytelling. And he's also R&D lead for AI at an immersive at Doc 10, which is the UK's leading TV production facility over in Media City. So today he's going to tell us about some cutting edge work they're doing exploring how to use computer vision and AI to simulate complex lighting effects in virtual production. But I think he'll describe this much better than I can. So I'll stop sharing and I'll pass now over to Flo, who'll tell you more. Please do, as you go on, please use the Q&A facility to ask questions. I'll field them at the end. And we'll have a bit of a discussion. So there will be a chance to kind of ask your questions and hear more from Flo in the areas you're interested in.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, John. That was a very, very kind introduction. And it feels weird to be home, but not home. So I'm currently sitting at Media City. I'm sitting in the gallery of our large TV studio. Because, and I take full responsibility for this talk not taking place in person. Because we are recording some cross-reality content that's actually relates to this talk here this week with professional actors and with the entire crew, technical crews from both University of York and Doc 10 being present. So hence my apologies for not being there in person. But let me share my slides and then we can start. All right, dramatic drum roll moment. All right. John, just a sanity check. You can see this, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you and I can see your slides.
Excellent. Perfect. So I want to talk to you today about work that we're doing in collaboration with, and when I say we, I am speaking as a member of the University of York, and we're collaborating with Doc 10 as John said. Doc 10 is the UK's largest television production facility. We have a variety of big different size studio, including HQ1, which is behind me, which is the largest purpose-built TV live production space in the UK. We do things all the way from sports like Match of the Day, Football Focus, all the way to entertainment and sort of shiny floor Saturday night shows, such as The Voice. We do Countdown. We do a lot of children's entertainment, including Blue Peter. So that's Doc 10. So when I speak with we, I often switch between the two. And we also have a very exciting partner on this particular project, which is 2LE Media. They're a London-based production company. They're doing very exciting formats, such as disability relief, and really are very much at the sort of forefront of experimentation with new production technologies. So ALL.VP is quite a mouthful. It stands for AI-powered lighting for live virtual production. And I should say that this is an Innovate UK funded project, and it's part of the Bridge AI competition, which is all about bringing universities, academia, and businesses together to translate research into practice. Just to give you a sense of the size of the project, it was really quite a ride. We are in month 12 out of 12. So we are in the final stretch of delivery. The total project budget was 1.7 million for 12 months. And that is 1.1 million funding from Innovate UK and 570,000 pound in contribution by Doc 10 and 2LE Media, which really sort of brings home also the sort of trust and sort of momentum and commitment the industry partners are bringing into that project. So this is really hard cash and real people and resources that are being put towards this project. So we're again super thrilled to be in this sort of collaboration. I'm speaking here as the lead investigator on the York side. I do want to, of course, mention the equivalent here, Rich Wormwell, my colleague here. He's the industry lead. He's the head of production innovation at Doc10. And then Michael Livingstone, who is, as we speak, in the studio downstairs directing our content shoot. He's a producer and managing director of 2LE Media. And also often we give the talks, but really the work I'm about to present, and that's why also you'll hear me praise it a lot, because it is really done by a vast team across the University of York, Doc10 and 2LE. A special mention goes to the computer vision group. So this project was specifically crafted with AI in mind, and we have fantastic colleagues over in computer science, including Will Smith and James Walker. So big credits to them. Let's dig in. So to context what I'm talking about, again, this is not a new term, but I'd really still like to define it because it means different things to different people. Cross-reality audience experiences, or short XR. It is the seamless blending of human performance with virtual worlds. And there's different types of blending it. In the top right, you see virtual production in front of green screens. So putting real people in front of virtual backgrounds. In the bottom left, you see a concert that's done in Fortnite. There's a real performance underpinning the artist's movements here, which is motion captured. It's delivered through Fortnite, the game, as a platform. And on the right, you see what, some of you may have already tried virtual reality or cross-reality headsets. It's really more interactive formats. But what really binds them all together is that you have human performance and that is seamlessly blended with virtual worlds. And that's the sort of definition. So why are these XR audience experiences important? So let's first take a look at the industry view. And throughout this talk, I'm so mindful that I'm preaching to the converted in this talk. I know I'm not trying to convince anyone, but for all those for which this view is interesting, shedding just a bit of light on what these markets are. So XR is we're at a stage where really the lines between what traditionally used to be separate parts of the creative industries are blurring. There's a lot of convergence between those, but XR is really important for broadcast TV. So, for instance, virtual production is used in news, in sports reporting, and sports coverage. It's increasingly important for film and higher HETV, so high-end TV. So different to broadcast TV in that it's filmed like a movie, and it has the traditionally very high production budgets. So again, then we see a lot of content coming through video games, which anchors real performance of physical performers in virtual environments, not just through esports, but for things like content such as episodic content that sit within game lore or game worlds. So companion content to video games that really sort of trickle into the TV and film markets. And then, of course, you've got all major big tech company investing in immersive platforms. And we see the post-metaverse surge of really a variety of different platforms that all are really desperate for good experiences that you can see in 3D, that you can see immersively, that may have parts of interactivity. So all of these markets are huge and very healthy in terms of growth. And that should speak for itself. So there's a lot of need across different segments within the creative industries. Now, why is XR important for research? And again, I've got brilliant colleagues here, and I know that all of you from students at York who are watching, you're all very much in this space, to practitioners that we have on this seminar. it really is, it creates a vast and underexplored space for interdisciplinary research. I always sort of mention immersive technology, AI, creative practice, storytelling, video game, human-computer interaction. There's more. And, it is underexplored in that it's just so vast and so rapidly growing through new technology being introduced and through new ways of doing creative practice. That I feel the statement was true 10 years ago and it will be true in another 10 years. There is just a vast space, and this goes into media convergence. I've just put a few buzzwords on here. There's some technology-based things like game technology, graphics engines that are really central. There is some very like computer vision, which is a branch of AI research. There's generative AI, which is very recent, of course. So I think it's a well-rounded image that this sort of makes, that both from an industry perspective and a research perspective, XR experiences are really, really important. Now, let's review some of the current states of XR. And here, I'm showing an example of green screen. And, we'll get to LED volumes in a bit, but green screen is still quite heavily used. It's cost effective, and it's also really quite flexible. Now, in order to get green screen to look convincing with a physical actor in front, this sort of quick sequence of clips just demonstrates the sort of manual work that goes into tweaking a clip such that the lighting on the actor matches the environment, right? And this is one of the key challenges of XR content, is to create a believable blend, right? And in fact, and this is true not just for green screen, but also for LED technology, a large percentage of budget in these cross-reality production, up to 50%, goes into visual effects and post-production. So there's a huge cost attached to that. And that creates really, really impressive results. But all of this work is done in order to equalize the lighting that comes from the virtual environment, such that the actor looks like they're really in that environment. Now, we obviously have LED volumes, so large studios that are wrapped around with LED screens. Some have roofs that are LED panels, some have lighting at the top, some have floors, but mostly here on the right, the sort of a shot from The Mandalorian. That's what really popularized the technology sort of in the sort of more public space. But the idea here is that because we have the projection of the light around the actor, first of all, if you frame the actor with a camera, and the camera and the background that is displayed in front of the actor are linked. So if you move the camera, the background also moves, and the perspective moves. Then you essentially have an inherent composition in the camera between, you don't need to do any of the green removal, you don't have to do anything like this. And even better, because you have this wraparound light emission, you have an inherent, at least diffuse, lighting onto the actor, such that they inherently, by the sheer act of being in this volume, look that the lighting matches what the environment, the virtual environment around it shows. Now, the important thing to say here is that LED volumes do require quite comprehensive and well-matched floor sets. So every time an actor stands on the floor, or comes out of an aircraft or a spaceship, that's actually built. And again, for high-end production, that is very achievable and feasible. I'm not here to sort of almost trash talk LED volumes. They have their space in high-end TV and film. But there are limitations on LED volumes in terms of lighting. So you can't get really hard shadows. That needs to be done with other means. Through the floor sets, you just lose a little bit of that flexibility to go from scene to scene to scene to scene, which you can do in a green screen environment. It's flicker switch type of turnaround, right? So expensive and limited. Again, very good for high-end stuff. And there is still some post-production VFX that's required in these. Now, since we're talking here at Live Lab, one of the key concerns, of course, is, and both at York and in Live Lab, but also here at Doc 10, which is all about broadcast TV. We think about live. Live is our lifeblood, right? And doing things in real time is hard for both of these techniques. Why? So in green screen, in these sort of this post-production obviously can't be applied to live formats because it takes time and manual labor. So it's not automated. And on the other hand, LED volumes, they do work in real time, but often for live experiences, you have more than one camera that captures the space. Now, I will say for those of you who are technically really into LED volumes, there are means of creating different frustrums from the camera, different projections onto the LED volume. There's ghost framing. But the conceptual problem with LED volume in the live space is that if you have one camera, the LED volume has to show the background with the perspective aligned to that camera. And if you then have a second camera and those two projections, if you think of cameras as projectors and not as sensors, but projecting the light out, if once they overlap, you have an issue because the LED wall can only show the correct perspective for one of the two cameras. Again, you can scale this up to 3 and maybe 4 cameras, then all of a sudden your frames go down. And if we talk about a live show such as sports, or you think about Dancing with the Stars or a game show with 10 contestants in a huge studio environment, you're talking upwards of 10, 15, 20 cameras. And you cannot, if you wanted to, with LED volumes, create that sort of effect live. So this is me done talking about how these things do not work. If we need to go live, this is a representative, and again, BBC and Doc 10, we do lots of really great shows together with the BBC. But you're limited in terms of what you can achieve real time. So here you can see that there is this sort of, there's a slight disconnect, even though the lighting team here has done a brilliant job, but there's no shadows on the floor. You can see there's also probably the lighting in the scene is a daylight, sharp shadows that you can't see really on the people, which are in a green screen environment. So you have an issue with credibility and a believable blend with the current technologies that you use. And the aim of and on objectives of the project ALL.VP is to really place real people into virtual environments such that it creates a near perfect illusion of the people actually being there. But think about the highest possible quality of LED volumes. Think about creative power, so put no constraints or limitations on the creative stakeholders. Make it so that it's cost effective and has a wide opportunity for adoption among the creative community. And most importantly, that it's live and real-time capable so that we can use that for live formats. We've eliminated, so again, there's this LED volume. So when you go from the left, which is our starting point, to our aim, I want to present to you today our latest findings of 3 different techniques we've been exploring, all of which use AI, and that's always symbolized with this sort of mechanical brain. The first one's called VP++. So that one builds on green screen multi-camera technology. And I just want to quickly show you, this is sort of a sample footage. This is our actors Sophie and Joe, who play school kids that have powers to wield the power of the elements. And they all have hero forms, they all have the elemental forms, and can transform. But this is the sort of raw footage that you would get in a green screen studio. If you just take that and you do a bit of color correction, a little bit of despill, there's it looks a little bit flat. So, and you can see that here the camera purposefully swivels away so that you can actually, so the scene that you see in the background is fully 3D. That's in Unreal Engine. So in the 3D engine, that scene exists in 3D, but the foreground, the projection of the video into the scene is completely flat. And that's how traditionally virtual production stacks to this day work, really. They insert a flat projection. Right, of course, you have the issue here that it doesn't look right. There's various issues with it, and the shadows in the background are different than in the foreground, and you could point to various details. Now, the one thing that the VP++ technique What it does, it uses state-of-the-art computer vision and generative AI algorithms that have trained on data sets that take as an input raw green screen footage. So on the left, you see it. I think you all see my mouse. John, can you just confirm that you see my mouse pointer?
Yeah, we
Think
can see it.
yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, John. And on the right is it dissects it into various different formats. And we're not, just to be absolutely clear, we're not the only sort of research group, or even there's companies out there that have similar products on the market. But for us, we overtrain our models on green screen footage. So here on the left, you have the masks, so the shape of the actors. You have what's called an albedo view. So this is essentially the lighting of the green screen removed as much as possible, so that it's like a plain canvas. You have things like specularity, how shiny each pixel of this recording is. Like if it were hit by a light source, would it reflect back? Here the normals, that's really the shape, is the sort of the hull, the shape of the surface of the actor. Then you have things like depth, how far they're away from the camera. And then you have things like roughness, again, a surface property that basically tells how much each pixel diffuses light that comes in or directly reflects it back, right? So something like my hoodie would be diffuse, whereas a shiny spot on my forehead would reflect the light more sharply. So now what you can do once you decompose the green screen input with all of these, you can do this. So again, this is a shot that will go off the axis of the final projection. So what you can see here is that using these different layers, what we can do is we can give this projection of the video into the virtual scene a shape, and also, quite importantly, place it in the right place. And you can see from the side that this is not a perfect estimation, but it makes things like noses, the forehead, arms, fingers, and parts of the cloth of the fabric of the shirt. It'll make it pop out. And I just want to show you real quick, sort of side by side, sort of the difference this makes. You know, again, this has to swivel in. Now, the exciting thing is once you are in that space, you can then place this scene into any virtual scene, and without doing any manual cleanup or post-production, fully automated, you essentially you make the footage starts looking like it took place in that lighting context. On the left, it's a basketball court. On the right, it's a South American temple in a jungle. And so, you know, again, there's imperfections that you'll spot if you watch this often enough, which we're working out. But really, I think the remarkable thing about this is that it's fully automated. So there is the same footage is just being put into different scenes, and it looks automatically to match the scene. So we're really, really pleased with that outcome. And that's the first technique. So every time you want someone who is a real actor in a virtual environment. So again, these are more sort of sales pitch slides, again, to reiterate. So we, you know, the aim of this is to make it low cost, real time, and we use an AI-powered reconstruction of the spatial parameters. And we've also got some really new ways of integrating it into the scene, right? And that creates sort of the desired effect. Now, let's get to the second approach, which we call deep real, and that is this is like a play on deep fakes, which, you know, deep fakes are usually have a negative connotation. Often is when you want to change someone's identity in a video. We use it to actually put the actors back into an artificial character. So this one works with motion capture and with the MetaHuman technology that is baked into Unreal Engine by Epic Games. And just wanted to illustrate quickly. So what this system, and this is out of the box, everyone can use this. You have the actor on the left. This is Sophie. You scan with most iPhones and Android devices can now do 3D scans. So you scan someone's face, it creates the texture and the 3D reconstruction here in the middle. Then it's being segmented into different facial regions that have muscles attached to them and movement. And then you get the sort of final meta-human clone, so to speak, of the actor. And just to give you a sense, again, I know that lots of you have been part of motion capture suit. This is essentially a motion capture suit plus faceware. You can do this with iPhones too, that are pointed at the actor's face. So you basically capture their motion, the whole body motion, and you capture their facial expression, and then you can compose it into a shot like this. So this is one of our outcomes, and you will see some really uncanniness, particularly in the faces, that I want you to pay attention to. So with how, given how amazing MetaHuman is, it's still quite hard to get good faces and to remove that uncanniness. And again, I want to say the caveat that there's animation studios who can do a perfect face and a perfect animation. What you see here is the raw data, almost untouched, out of the capture suite. And again, we're interested in this project to create low-cost, fast turnaround products, right, and content. And so you can see that the faces really are still a weakness. So you can also see this again illustrated on the MetaHuman in the bottom left, the animated version of our virtual Sophie. You can see it's just not right. It definitely resembles her, but even with good animations that are here applied by default, the eyes and some facial features do not pop out in the same way. So the aim here was to create realistic natural face expression that match the actor's likeness, but also to maintain the captured performance. So those three are really, really important. And I just want to show you on this clip, and there's going to be much more, what the effect of this is. So you can see it's on the left is the pure MetaHuman. Then it's deep real. And again, we call it deep real because we just want to make the MetaHuman more real as in the original actor. So we've trained a model specific for Sophie. So this is not a general purpose deepfake model. We train all our models specific, and I'll say a few things about that later. And then there's deep real and de-aged, because in this particular instance for this show, the creative director wanted the actors to be 18 plus simply because for contractual reasons, but play sort of 13, 14-year-old actors. So we played a bit with the de-aging. But you can see it's a notable difference in terms of its fidelity and expressiveness and likeness to the original actor. So I mentioned the training generation. So the computer vision team at York, my colleagues Will Smith and also Danny Roberts, who works on the project, they've built a really exciting sort of dome-like structure that has hundreds of LEDs that are controllable. And what you can essentially do here is you can create an almost perfect scan of someone's face, so without with the lighting removed, so you get no shadows, you get sort of a blank face, you get things like specularity, how much they reflect, as I mentioned earlier, how much they reflect the light. You get things like directionality, that's the normal. So again, you get that shape and the geometry. And what we can do with this is after we're done with this, we can run thousands of different environments and scan the face under different lighting conditions, and then create our custom built deepfake model for this particular actor. It won't work on anyone else. And I'll say a few things at the very end about legalities and ethical use, because for us it was super, super important that A, our models are commercially safe to use, and B, which most of deepfake models that are online that you can get in free tools aren't. And secondly, that we respect and protect the actor's identity with a clear consent and a very, very clear definition of the scope in which we can use Sophie's likeness in that case. So we've gone through a comprehensive ethics and data protection procedure for that because we're essentially creating what could be classified biometric data. So I just want to show you a few clips these are really like first time we some of these clips show. We're really excited about the trailer, but the project is just about a month away from producing those. But so here the difference is quite subtle. Admittedly, you can when we freeze frame, you can actually see quite interesting differences. Again, they are subtle and they will only affect the face region, but you can see that the eyes, and particularly mouth and the nose. So some of these facial features are improved through the deepfake. This is Bridget. She plays another character called Naya, and here the differences are really quite pronounced. On the left, you can see her pure metahuman character, which really borderlines the creepy, I shall say. It doesn't look good, and it's with lots of these metahuman faces, they just don't look right. Whereas on the right, if you met Bridget, and she'll be with us tomorrow, that is really her. It's a fantastic thing. Now we talked about this matching the lighting earlier, so I just wanted to quickly show you a few other clips. So on a close-up, so you can see the difference. It says here also on a close-up. So you can see the differences. The interesting thing about deepfake is that they take as lighting the input from the metahuman. So in the previous approach that I showed you, obviously a major effort was to make the video look as if it was lit in the virtual scene. Now, here we don't have this issue to begin with because the fully virtual metahuman on the left uses Unreal Engine's lighting system to be properly lit. So you can see the red backlight on a hair. You can see the front light, the directionality. What deepfake does really, really well is to preserve that lighting of the original frame. So it just adjusts the lightness, the likeness of the result, but it maintains the shading and the complexion and the light sources. So this is what's really good about it. And I also wanted to show you this, which is purposefully a bit of a blurry shot. So deepfake works really well on motion blur as well. So you get a very natural sort of smooth thing. I need to really speed up because I'm talking. I'm already at 30 minutes. But you can sort of get the point here. It's a different approach, but same result. You essentially take a human performance and embed it in a desired quality and likeness of the original actor, such that the blend, the illusion is good. This is a really good shot. This is a really good idea, a really good illustration of how often eyes. So the interesting thing is that metahuman, again, you can correct all of this, but sometimes you get gaze directions that seem really extreme, that are sort of unnatural. The deepfake also sorts all of those out automatically. We haven't told it to do that, but because it's seen Bridget in various different compositions, it knows that that's nothing it's seen before. And just one more about a surprised face. So here's one of the end results. You can see on the right Bridget with the deepfake and without it on the left. Right. So I want to show you one, and every talk needs to have some complexity. My old supervisor always tell me you need to lose the audience at least one slide, and also we need to introduce a bit of comedy. So the last one is one of the more ambitious techniques, which again tries to do the same thing. It takes as input video and motion capture data, but we call it the neural volume in a stab at LED volumes. The point here is that we want to move away from 2D cameras altogether in a way that we want to, ideally, in an ideal world, we want to be able to film an actor and be able to capture them in 3D, right? And animated and moving across the stage. There's solutions. You can pay about £10,000 per 10 seconds. There's some stages that can do that, but they need a lot of processing power. They don't use in real time. They don't work in real time yet. There's lots of groups working on similar stuff, but here this is actually depicts James, who is the researcher on this project. On the left, you can see an original picture, and on the right, you see a reconstruction of the scene and James. but through a neural rendering engine, and that's using a technology called Gaussian splats. You will see it in the videos that I'm about to show you. But essentially, you basically look at the model from various angles, and the model essentially learns how James looks like in that particular set of clothing. And you can see at the bottom, you can see how it also detects the spatial nature and the directionality of the lights and so on. So this is a technique that ultimately goes back to neural radiance fields. So I want to show you a few clips. So this is James, and again, this model is not fully trained yet. So there, purposefully, when you zoom in, you can see lots of gaps. But the special thing here about the Gaussian splats and how we use those is that you can imagine this as almost like a 3D shape of the actor that's being detected, and then you almost stick these color dots. It's almost like you put pixels onto a virtual avatar. It's a 3D scan, essentially, but it's better than a 3D scan because it will ultimately be able to react to lighting. And it's better than MetaHuman in that it looks much more organic and realistic. So every frame will be ultimately photoreal. This is the comedy bit, and James didn't want me to show this, but we've rigged him up with some dance. And obviously this looks really bad at the moment. And again, this is the reality of a research project, is you don't get to the perfect end result immediately. But what it does illustrate is, in contrast to Gaussian splats, which are normally used for environments in which are static, this type of system can be animated. And so you can think about this almost as a virtual copy clone of James that James himself could puppeteer. And again, the idea here is that in this neural volume, someone could just walk in, and we've pre-trained a puppet, a clone of theirs, like we are training a deepfake model, and you can essentially puppeteer your avatar. And then again, you have all the benefits of lighting merging in the scene, because you're essentially creating a very accurate 3D representation of the actor in the virtual scene. So I'm really sorry, I've talked a bit too long. And again, this is I'm ending on an unfinished product, but please stay tuned. I'd love to come back and show everyone the final outputs of that technique as well. Now, I think what I've hoped to illustrate is that, AI has some really intriguing and key roles to play in XR production, regardless of the workflow, that whether you go down a virtual production route or a motion capture and face capture route with virtual avatars. There's some really interesting applications. It's really important to note that it's not one size fits all. There's no implication that one is better in all aspects than the other. And they currently do not work just in real time yet. There's some compute optimization we have to do. So it currently works only on live stuff, on non-live stuff, but that's something to work on. Now, the legalities and ethical use is a really important thing. So our approach in the project is always to train our own model. That way we know that we don't, that we control what's in the footage. That way we understand, we understand copyright. That way we can get consent by actors, and that way misuse can be minimized, because we can keep these models secure and protected, and ultimately protect the creative stakeholders here. So this brings me